I'm Claire Billingsley, host of Coffee with Claire, and today we are going to talk with Dr. Edward Llewellyn about professional relationships and professional development. Now, we all want to have great relationships at work, and we all want to do our very best. However, we can get in our own way. So join us as we learn from Dr. Edward Llewellyn how to get out of our way and get into that space of being very professional and being happy at work. So welcome back, Dr. Ed. We're so glad to have you here again on Coffee with Claire.
Claire, I tell you what, every time I get to come back, I'm just more excited to get to share information with you and your audience, and so it's a real privilege to be here.
Well, we are really excited to have you here today because previously we have talked about weight loss, we've talked about healthy lifestyle, we've talked about financial security, personal relationships, and today we are going to talk about professional relationships and professional development. And each one of these conversations has always had intertwined among it the core identity conversation. And so we'll want to make sure that we are reminding the audience briefly about what our core identity is, just in case they hadn't seen any of our previous episodes. So let's start with that.
All right. So most people, because they play so many roles in life, become those roles. They become what they do instead of who they are. And so if they're a husband, a father, a son, a mother, a daughter, a wife, an athlete, any of the roles that they play in life, sometimes those become so consuming that they forget who they are.
Right.
And so it's many times like, I've seen this especially in the case of professional women who are business professionals and their mothers. They get so consumed in their roles that when they have some downtime, they all of a sudden realize they've lost who they are.
Yeah, and so that's what we mean by core identity, is who you are as a person, not necessarily how you show up. So one of the most important professional relationships that you can have is with your boss, right? And we all want our boss to like and respect us and appreciate us, but sometimes, like we've learned in previous segments of High Impact Living, sometimes we let old relationship habits map into new relationships.
Right.
And so, sometimes it's a buildup in our mind, right? It's like if the boss looks at it one time, and it's a really mean glance, and that wasn't even meant for you, we take it personally.
Sure.
So, all or nothing in a boss, worker relationship really doesn't work for us.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't for anybody.
So let's talk about specifically salespeople and their direct reports and how that relationship works.
Okay. And as you know, Claire, I've worked with a lot of salespeople, helping them increase their sales. Also sales managers. And what I see is the dynamics between the two. It's almost constant, where I see this dynamic of we have the boss, and then we have the employee, the salesperson, and there's always that dynamic of somewhat of a fear-based relationship, because there's, that person has some power over whether they have a job or not, their performance, how many resources are made available to them, so many things that the boss has that power and control over them. So many times what happens is, like you just said, maybe they're standing in the hallway and the boss and a couple other people are talking, and the boss looks over at them and they get a mean or a stern look, and they immediately impute it. They immediately impute it to themselves, saying, they were looking at me with that bad look.
That means they don't like me.
That's right. And because that becomes a belief, now the mind looks for ways to support that belief. So now when they read an email, they find that the words that otherwise could have been taken one way are now taken negatively, because they already have this belief that the boss doesn't like them. They get a text, they get a phone call. All those things start to aggregate, and as they aggregate, it just becomes more and more of a truism that they and their boss are at odds.
Yeah, because they're like justifying inside of their brain that, yeah, this shows that he doesn't like me, and the way he worded that email shows that, he's mad at me, or he scrutinizes me more than he does the other workers in the office or the department or whatever. So, and I know that you work with people all the time on a specific technique that helps them kind of get over that. So would you mind explaining just a brief way of...
Sure. So, and this relates kind of to what some of the things that you do. You do the laughter yoga, right?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
So in the brain, there's 12 cranial nerves, and 8 of those are related to fight or flight.
Okay.
So survival mode.
Mm-hmm.
4 of them are related to what's called at ease. So, being relaxed. And one of the main ones is what's called the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve, and the other 3 nerves are related to the eyes, the ears, and the mouth.
Okay.
So what's fascinating is that when you change the way whether you're smiling or not smiling, can actually affect the vagus nerve.
Okay.
And change the way you feel all the way into your stomach.
Wow.
And so when a person can laugh at something, it changes their whole perspective, their whole feeling from the inside out about something. So here's the technique. It's an NLP, or neuro-linguistic programming technique.
Mm-hmm.
It's called the fast phobia removal. And
fast phobia removal. Try to say that 10 times fast.
That's it. So if you have a fear, then this works really well.
Okay.
And I'm just going to go through just the high points of it.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, you start off, you're sitting in a movie theater.
Okay, so we got the screen.
Yep. So you have the screen up there, but you're also in the projector booth watching yourself watch the movie.
Okay.
Now, what this does, it creates what's called a double dissociation, so that you don't feel the emotional impact.
Okay.
So you start off, you've got a small 12-inch black and white TV, and what I ask people to do is to think of the worst case scenario that they've had with their boss.
Okay.
So maybe it was they were being threatened to be terminated, whatever. 5 minutes before that happened, they were safe. Somewhere around 20 to 30 minutes or so afterwards, they were safe again.
Okay.
So I asked them to find those 2 spots.
Okay. Got the bookends.
So now I asked them, play that scenario on that 12-inch black and white TV forward in less than 5 seconds, that entire scenario.
Okay.
And so they play it forward with the sound on. Again, it's black and white, and they stop when they're safe again. Now I asked them to now look at it as if it's a big IMAX screen, full color, loud sounds, but this time their boss has a bozo clown nose, bozo suit on, squirty flower, talking backwards in Daffy Duck's voice.
Oh, okay.
And they play the scene backwards.
That makes me laugh just thinking about it.
They play backwards in less than 5 seconds with circus music playing. So boom, that's it. And they stop when they're safe again. And basically what I do is I take them through that scenario with different variations about 5 or 6 times.
Okay.
And then the last time when they're running it backwards, I ask them to do one of 2 things with it. Either cast it off into the sun where it completely is burned up by the sun, or just let it run off into white nothingness. When they're done, they have that same reaction you just had, which is they can't think about their boss without laughing.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden, now when they get a text, an email, a phone call, any personal interaction, it has no effect. In fact, I always have to warn them, look, just control yourself, because...
Yeah, you don't want to laugh at the boss in front of their face.
That's it. That's
You're
it.
in big trouble. Then you will be on the bad list.
And just like you've experienced with laughter yoga, what this does, it changes the whole dynamics of the body and the mind.
It releases endorphins and
Absolutely.
oxytocin.
And now they can have these interactions with their boss and become more productive, and it changes the dynamics between them and their boss.
Yeah.
So it becomes much more positive.
And I'm sure the boss senses this too. It's like, hey, there's a change in Bill. I wonder what's going on with
That's
that.
it.
But they don't stop to think what it is. They're just really happy that the changes happen so they can be productive and move forward.
And that's something Viktor Frankl said many years ago, was that if you can't change your circumstances, you have to change yourself.
Yeah, because that's the only thing you control, right?
That's it.
Yeah, you can't control anybody else. But that was a really short version of what Dr. Ed walks people through. If you're interested in learning more about it, you can always contact Ed at think.com for more information. So now, Dr. Ed, let's transition into professional development. I feel like that I've been a student of professional development my entire career. I mean, I have read every book, I've taken so many classes, and, I really wanted to take all of that and help people become really good at their job, and I wanted them to enjoy what they were doing when we were working together.
Sure.
But, you never get it exactly right. It's tough being a leader. So, one of the things that you say in the chapter of your book covering this topic states, do you enjoy your career, your job, or your business? And you have some pretty interesting statistics that I'd like for you to share with the audience.
It's amazing. In fact, it's staggering that 70% of people are unhappy in their job.
Yeah, that's amazing.
70%. So, it leaves you without wondering about, why is employee engagement, why is culture, why are those things such hot topics? And it's because people are just unhappy in their jobs. The other statistic is that 72% of people are not in the job they went to college for.
I'm not.
So,
I went to school to teach elementary school.
So people, they probably mom and dad said, hey, we want you to be an attorney, we want you to be, a teacher, we want you to be this, that. And so they went on that path.
Mm-hmm.
And it's staggering to me, too, to think about, I attended a job fair for junior high students, and they expected these kids to already have figured out their career path when they were in junior high.
Wow. I'm glad I didn't follow that career path.
So people are really unhappy, and as we talked about before with the core identity,
right.
So much of the time, if this is their core identity, this is their job, it's at least like this, if not like this. So they can't be happy.
Yeah, and you tell a story about a client of yours named Bill that kind of illustrates this whole kind of scenario. So in maybe a couple of minutes, can you just kind of describe it to our audience?
So Bill came to me because he was in career transition. He came to me showing me the last 4 jobs he had. Each job was only for about 2 years long. He was a CIO, CTO in companies. Mm-hmm. And he then brought to me the 5 top jobs that his recruiting company had said that they wanted him to apply for.
Okay.
And the first one he showed me, he immediately dismissed it, said, I don't want to do this one because I'm an introvert. And so I asked him, how do you know? He says, well, they gave me an assessment. They told me I'm an introvert. Okay, so how else do you know? And so he went through this whole scenario about how he's always kind of the wallflower when he and his wife are out and all that kind of thing.
Oh, you know how us women are.
So then he went on to describe the other jobs, and they were all like the previous jobs he'd only spent 2 years at. His goal was to find a job he could finish his career out.
Sure.
So we talked more about this other job and him supposedly being an introvert. And so as I talked with him, come to find out, what had happened in his life was that around 8 years old or so, his dad put him in different sports. Mm-hmm. And I think the intention was good, but at the end of every game, every time they were practicing, mm-hmm. he would stand him in front of the team and berate him. Tell him how much better he could have done,
yeah.
how he wasn't working hard enough.
Your best isn't good enough.
And so why would a person want to be in front of people if that's the experience they always had?
Sure.
So in my work with him, I was able to help him to release those emotions, or release that attachment that he had to his dad saying those things to him, and he actually became an extrovert. And he ended up taking this job. It's actually with a global company as their CTO.
So he really was able to identify what specific incident had made him feel that way, and then get through it.
Yeah, and so that's what happens with so many people. We become what our experiences have caused us to be, rather than who we really are.
Yeah.
Again, that circles right back around to core identity. And that is such a freeing and such an empowering thing for people to have, because it literally can change their life, to empower them to, like in Bill's case, to reach out to, here with a global company being a CTO versus, staying with some there's nothing against local companies, but, a smaller local company, which in 2 years he's going to be gone again anyway.
Right. So, Dr. Ed, you make a profound statement in your book, and you follow it with some questions that I'd like to share with our audience. And the statement is, if you're not happy and you don't find satisfaction in your career, you may have a similar problem like Bill to deal with. And so ask yourself these 4 questions. Do I have a hard time getting excited and passionate about my career? Do I believe strongly in TGIF, thank God it's Friday? Is my compensation package the only thing that keeps me at my job? And suppose you could have the perfect job for you, the one that exists in your dreams. Is your current job like that? And I think that if we would all really consider that, we could figure out where we're really supposed to be. Because really, the reason that 70% of people, they're in a job that they don't like is that they weren't aligned with their core identity.
Right.
Yeah. So, Dr. Ed, thank you so much for all of your wisdom. We are so excited to have you here with Coffee with Claire and talking about high-impact living.
Thank you, Claire. I appreciate it.
So today, Dr. Ed is going to talk to us specifically about goal setting and how important it is to, when we're doing our goals, to be able to get a lot more than just them written down. So, Dr. Ed, tell us a little bit about writing goals and really embodying our goals.
Okay. There's so much information about there. There's what's called SMART goals and all these things.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's some truth to all those things. And whether you're setting goals at the beginning of a year to accomplish by the end of the year or beginning of the day to accomplish by the end of the day, the things that are really important is to actually change your mind, transition your mind, and transform it so that it's very accepting of those goals and already feels like it's achieved those goals.
Okay.
So, and I think that's what's missing from so many of the goal-setting programs that I've seen is, for instance, if you're my boss, you come in, you tell me, Ed, give me your top 10 goals for the year. And I sit there and I go, whatever, and I write them down, or I put them, in the Word document, and I send them off to you. They're almost meaningless.
And I just want to add that I think that even more meaningless is when your boss gives you your goals.
Sure.
Because they're not even yours. They're somebody else's that they're just saying, hey, this is what you need to do.
Right. And one of the key elements that those are missing is that internal motivation.
Yeah.
What's driving you personally to want to achieve those goals?
Sure.
So one of the first things I think is important is some of the studies I've seen done as far as should you use a computer and a Word document, or should you write them down on a piece of paper?
Mm-hmm.
At least what I've studied, actually the kinesthetic part, the physical writing them down is more powerful to the mind than sitting there at a Word document and putting them in with a computer.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that I encourage
sense.
people to do is write them down yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Use your hand, pen, paper, and write those down. As you write those down, what meaning do those goals really have for you?
Okay.
That will help internalize it. And then projecting yourself into the future as if you've already achieved those.
Okay, so visualization.
Yep,
Okay.
Visualization. And more than just, wow, I've got a bank account that's got $1 million in it. More than that, it's more, what is life going to be like when you have that $1 million?
Mm-hmm.
So, do you have that Maserati that you're driving around that says, I work for this? Do you
We'll work for Maserati.
It's the ability to afford the things in life that you really want to have. Money is never the end object. It's
Right.
what the money can do for you. And it's different for every person.
And you've got a technique that you also work with your clients on called anchoring.
Yes.
And so how do we anchor that idea?
So what I encourage my clients to do is, again, fully live the moment. You're there. You have whatever it is, $1 million, $10 million, $50 million, and you're there living that life. And at the height of living that, when you feel those emotions, you feel your heart stirred, you feel the adrenaline rushing.
Got it.
Absolutely. It's yours. You own it. At that point, you can do what's called anchoring, which is very simply do something that you don't normally do. So if you normally do like this, the fidget, you probably don't want to do that because that's somewhat meaningless now.
Okay.
But you would take, and let's say you don't normally stand there and tap on your finger 3 times.
Okay.
So at the height of that feeling, tap 3 times and anchor it.
Okay.
So that every time you tap 3 times on that finger, boom, it just automatic, all those feelings come back. All the emotions, all the sensations, all the thoughts, the memories. In fact, I call those future memories because you've already created them, you've already been there, and you bring back with you to this very time and this point in time those feelings, thoughts, emotions, and beliefs.
And so whenever you're tapping your finger, what does that do?
It's a kinesthetic action. So
Kinesthetic again?
It causes, well, it's just like someone that you love, and maybe they touch you in a certain way. For instance, they touch you on the shoulder, and every time they touch you on the shoulder, you get a certain feeling. It's the same thing. So you associate that touch with those emotions, those feelings, beliefs, and thoughts.
So you want to write down your goals, you want to envision yourself in the future achieving those goals or have already achieved those goals, and then anchor.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Ed. We appreciate your help with us in understanding how to best set our goals.
Thank you, Claire.
I have to tell you, it's such an honor and privilege to know Claire Billingsley. And to be on her show was absolutely fantastic. I do business and life coaching, and I do motivational speaking. So to be with someone like Claire is not only a privilege and an honor, but an absolute blessing. I was able to be on her show and do a program, and I can just tell you a few weeks later that I had calls requesting and even asking me to go speak at their group. So again, thank you, Claire, for everything that you're doing. Thank you for having the vision and the innovation and the creativity to do this fantastic program. If you haven't been on her show, I would absolutely suggest and highly recommend that you would call and get on her agenda. And if you haven't watched it, I would encourage you to sit down and go through several different episodes, and you'll find out how amazing Claire Billingsley is and what a great friend she is as well.
Okay, so here are the top 10 things that I learned about professional relationships and professional development. Number 10, personal and professional relationships have the same starting place in our minds. Number 9, it's not productive to have an all or nothing approach in any relationship. Number 8, our interpretations of what someone meant by a look or saying a phrase may be completely inaccurate. Number 7, if you learn to laugh at the person you're having negative thoughts about, it can make you feel better and it won't hurt the other person. Number 6, sadly, 70% of people in the workforce do not like their jobs. Number 5, 72% of the people who have graduated from college are not even in the field for which they attended college. Number 4, understanding your core identity can help you choose a career path that is fulfilling for you. Number 3, it is possible to have your dream job, but you must be willing to let go of old patterns and actually follow your dream. Number 2, there are great techniques that we can learn to help us through some of these ingrained identities or belief systems we have developed in our lifetime. And number 1, just because someone else told you that you can't do something doesn't mean it's true. Thank you so much for watching Coffee with Claire. Again, my name is Claire Billingsley. We are so excited to have you here. Watch us on WBTVN.TV, as well as Apple TV, Roku, and other internet TV carriers. And as always, remember, follow the fun. See you next time.